All right, before we get too far into too many videos on our channel, we wanted to stop and take a break to just kind of talk a little bit about what is our mission, what's kind of our goal in making these videos. Some of you have probably seen on our social medias, our real theme is someday is today. And what we mean by that is, man, probably a year and a half ago, we started watching a few vlogs of people on YouTube that traveled. They did international travels, but some were local. Then COVID hit and it was more the van and the US travels. But we just was like, oh man, that would be so much fun to do, but that could never be us. And it's interesting even watching those vlogs, those people say, oh, we're just normal people too, and we're just blessed to be able to do this. We have no idea how we got here. So in us watching, we go, yeah, you say you're normal, but you're not just a normal person. Yeah. You've got something extra to allow you to do that. So we watched a bunch, and then we kind of got in this stage of, well, that would actually be fun. Could we actually do that? So we didn't necessarily intentionally start taking steps in that direction, but
not a year and a half ago.
No, but it was, we would like to do that. What would it actually take?
Yeah.
So we started to do some research, which was kind of step one, just kind of looking around. What could we do? Could we travel? Obviously we can't travel because we had 2 full-time jobs at brick and mortar locations. I think the thing that really started it in part was you got a job an hour and a half away from our hometown where we both grew up.
Yeah.
Which we said we could never leave home because of family and blah, blah, blah.
And that was really hard. I never thought I would leave like the confines of Oklahoma City. I was just really close to my family. But like I said, great opportunity. So we left, and that really kind of got us comfortable with being like far from family.
Comfortable outside our comfort zone.
Far for us.
Yeah. So we left, sold our home, moved up there, got a rental. We looked for some houses to buy, but then we said we don't know the area very well, so let's just rent. So we rented. That 1 year was coming up to close to being done. We both still had brick and mortar jobs at that time. And then we said, you know what? Before we buy a house or before we go into a rental again, let's just look at RVs and campers. And what started that even was your parents. Your parents got one.
Yes, my parents had been traveling for about 8 months. And I mean, we just thought it looked cool. And Preston's brother owned a camper, and he was like, haha, it'd be so fun. And I was like, I don't really know. I wasn't sold on the idea, but I wasn't against it. But it was something that we had never considered before. And so it was like, what an interesting idea.
Just said, you know what? We got a free weekend. Let's go look for fun. Well, we looked at one location. It was all right. Nothing that we really loved. And then we went back to our hometown, and we were like, yeah, let's go look again just for fun. So what we were looking at was definitely smaller. But then the lady's like, hey, have you ever thought of a Montana high country? So we were like,
Which
no.
We had no idea. We were like, okay, cool. Sounds good.
So the other ones that we had looked at, it's just like, this isn't really livable. I mean, it's nice. We could do it, but going from a home to a fifth wheel is totally different.
Yeah, and I tell people now, people who are looking at fifth wheels, I'm like, you walk in and you pretty much know. Like, after I looked at 2 or 3, I would walk in the door and I would either stay in and look around, or I would walk right back out. Like, you get a feel of if it's the layout that you could personally live in. And we walked into the Montana high country, and I was like, I could never leave. I love this.
We purchased that one. We lived in that one for 8 months. But then after living in one, you go, we don't need all this.
No.
It doesn't need to be this nice. But to go from a home to that, we needed to take that step.
Yeah, we didn't even expect to get the one that we got necessarily. I mean, it was really nice, but then I always thought, like, we went from 3-bed, 2-bath house
for 2 people
to 41 feet.
Yeah, right.
We sold all of our furniture. Like, we got rid of anything that couldn't fit, and a lot of stuff that could. So, I mean, a lot of clothes, knickknacks, trinkets. Like, if you want to do an extreme clean out, move into a fifth wheel.
For sure. So we were still living in Tulsa at that time, and then you lost your job.
Yes, so we found a park in Tulsa. It was really nice. We looked around, and it was kind of the only one that we felt like we could make work, like location-wise. And I lost my job, and after that, we knew that we wanted to go remote. We weren't 100% sold, but I didn't also feel 100% sold that I needed to look for another brick and mortar type job. I mean, the Lord really just provided a job for me, and I now have 2 remote jobs. I'm a virtual assistant, and I love it. I don't know if it wasn't necessarily those jobs,
But we were looking to see if it was still possible to travel, which is why you pursued the remote job compared to another brick and mortar job.
we don't travel. You know, would I want to work at home when we started a family? Like, it was just this whole new world that opened up that I had never considered. And so I was like, we'll go for this and see what happens.
Right. So after 8 months of you having that job, probably 7 months of her having that job, it was, hey, I'm remote, you're not remote. It's like, well, I know I have a good job, good sales job with some very good upside potentials. His new business location, I was kind of the manager running the majority of it. So it was a good opportunity, but then it just came time where I needed change, needed to do something else. So that's when I started to look at remote while I was still working there, and looked for 2-3 months. Nothing really came up, but then it was like, you know what? We're just gonna have to jump. We came here to Florida, still no job, and then got a job. I just finished my first week. So,
and this whole time, like all of 2021 was really like our prep year. And we weren't sure. We were just kind of taking steps because we had this, and we had talked about it. It was almost just this sense of restlessness. Nothing was bad. We had great jobs. We had a great rent house. We had a great location, even with our other fifth wheel. Like, everything was great, but we still had this stirring that full-time travel is what we wanted to do, is what we were supposed to do. That's really when we were like kind of pedal to the metal. We were like, okay, this could actually work. And it took a lot longer. Like I said, we came here and he still didn't have a remote job. But I mean, I don't know. Sometimes you take that leap and it's been totally worth it. It's been like 3 weeks, but I mean, sometimes you just got to do it if you know that it's what you want and what you're supposed to do.
So the point of Someday Is Today is we didn't really know that full-time travel was actually a possibility for us.
Yeah.
We thought it was actually pretty absurd, and there's no way we could actually do that.
And some other people would agree.
Right. But the point of Someday Is Today is, if you have a dream, start taking steps towards it, because the dream is too big. You can't actually do the dream most of the time. Some things are, like we were talking about earlier, if you want to tell somebody that you love them, you don't really need to take a whole bunch of steps to do that. You can just
drive to their
do
house.
it. But most things that we call dreams, they're so big. Like I said, you can't do it. So someday, to get to someday, which is us, where we go, someday is today.
Yeah,
We're
we made it
actually
happen.
traveling. We both have remote jobs. We're full-time in a fifth wheel on the road, and we're in the Keys. I mean, it's just wild.
Yeah.
And it's still hasn't set in that it's real yet. We're like, we're not going home. But
Are we on vacation or are we not?
right.
I don't know yet.
So hopefully we just want to inspire people to go, look, I can take the next step. And you never know where it's going to end up. You might take the next step towards this, but it turns and you go somewhere completely different. But if you wouldn't have taken the step, you never would have got to the other location. So just start taking steps. Start doing the research, going to look, talking to people, watching videos. To get to Someday Is Today, just start.
Yeah, and you have to dream. Like, when we were watching those YouTube videos, I mean, we thought it was so fascinating. We were like, oh my gosh, like, this is so cool. How did they do this? Like, this could be us one day, ha ha, you know?
Right.
And I think when we came up with Someday Is Today in retrospect, like when we were about to start traveling and we looked back at the last year and a half, I could just remember the happiness, the tears, the frustration. Like, it wasn't just this easy road. Like, we knew that our entire lifestyle was going to change, and we wanted that, but it came with some bumps and bruises and all those kinds of things. But we looked back and we were like, you just have to start. And Someday Is Today is the big picture. It is this, like, you know, we didn't know if it was possible. Typically when people full-time travel, like, I don't know, we are young, we didn't have a family yet, and so we thought, oh, that's a great idea, but we also had nice jobs, so do we leave and sacrifice all that? security for this new lifestyle. And everything in us was saying yes. And so it's the big picture. You know, someday is today for us. We decided, you know what, we're not living on anyone else's terms. Like, our time is now. But it's also, like he said, the progression and the steps. Like, you know what, someday is today. What's the first step I can take? Because we didn't say we want a full-time travel and then left the next day. It was a year and a half prep of just this dream building in our hearts. We left a couple weeks ago. It was like, oh my gosh, this is like the pinnacle of everything we've been working for. And so I think one day we were just sitting and talking, and he was like, you know what, like, what do we want to inspire people to feel? And he was like, that someday is today, that your dreams are valid and real. And if you feel like you want to go after them, like, take that step today, a step, small, big, you know, whatever you can manage in your season of life, but just do it.
But now that we're here, then it's kind of, all right, now what do we want to do next? What do we want to start pursuing next and looking forward to next? So it's always a revolving dream and goal, which keeps it fun. Our someday is today, and we want to keep pushing towards what our next someday is going to be. We don't want to wait till we retire or wait till this, that, or the other. We want to pursue those things.
Yeah, and that's another thing, like, a part of someday is today is the factor of time. I mean, we can't bank on that we have all this time to pursue our dream. You know, we're not guaranteed tomorrow. And so if you say someday, and this is the line that kind of spurred on, someday I will, ... fill in the blank of whatever that is for you. Don't bank on time to put off the things that you're really passionate about. Go for it. Find a way to incorporate it into your life.
So it'd be interesting just see if people leave comments to say, hey, someday I want to do something and I want to take the first step of X.
Or leave a comment.
That's
like,
what I'm saying.
Tell us, like, what is your someday? And
then you can
hopefully in
look
a
back.
year,
That's crazy. You could look back and go, I left a comment somewhere, and what was the date on that? And you're like, wow, that was maybe my first step of putting it out there that I wanted to do it.
And then a year and a half from now, you have to message us when you do it. Message us and say, I actually did it.
So it'd be interesting. But yeah, we just kind of want to inspire people to say, look, maybe I can do that. What can I do to take steps to get there? So that is our someday is today, and we'll kind of revolve with that theme as we continue to go. We want to video this and keep up with our travel so that we can look back as well to go, all right, what were we dreaming at? What were we pushing for? And where are we now whenever that time is? So it's a fun journey.
It's really crazy to like look back. I was sitting and working, and I just looked out at the water, and I just couldn't believe that we had actually done it, and that, you know, we had just worked and prayed, and it has come to fruition, and we feel super, super blessed. And so we want to take that excitement and inspire you guys to pursue that itch in your heart. Like, there's a purpose to that. And although you might not be able to do it tomorrow, understand that, like, you can take a step today and it's valid, and you don't have to push it off because you're too scared. Like, we were scared. We were sacrificing and leaving behind a lot, and now we're going to be away from our family for months. But just like embrace the steps, push back your discomfort, you know, like get outside of your comfort zone, because that's where growth and experience really happens. Is kind of what we're finding. You know, now this is not in our comfort zone at all, but it's what we want to do, so we're getting there. But
so in wrap up, this is not the end of our journey. This
just
is
the beginning.
Right, it's just the beginning. We've been pursuing it. We're now here. What are we going to be pursuing next? But just challenge yourself to say, what steps can I take? Just like we are challenging ourselves constantly to say, what steps can we take for our next day? What do we want to dream at next? So whatever your someday is today, goal is, just start taking steps, and you never know what will happen whenever you look back in here. So hopefully we're encouraging to you guys, but we'd love to kind of build a community. We'd love to comment, chat with people, message people on social medias, and just kind of see where this journey goes and see who we end up meeting and traveling with and doing different life experiences with. So it'll be a lot of fun, but we hope to take you guys along, and we'll see you guys in future videos.